All right, we're back for our second part of our section 2, and today we're going to be working on our mitten 2. There's a part A and a part B to this block. It's going to be a little bit different than what we've done before. So we are going to look up here, and we are on page 39. And it's going to tell you we need our one piece of background fabric, which is the gray. We need 2 pieces of the red that we're using for the mittens, and then 2 pieces for the cuffs. This is an in the hoop project where the top part of this mitten, the part we're going to do as A, is the pocket that sits on top of our background fabric so that you are able to stick things down into it. So don't get all worried about it. It's going to be good. It's going to be easy. But we've got to really watch our instructions, because there's some special instructions. And if you see anything that has highlighted in the yellow, and there's quite a few here, those are really important steps, and we're going to take our time to do this. First thing we're going to do, look at our list. We have our lightweight mesh cutaway stabilizer, which is what we've been hooping in our hoop. We'll do that for the second part. Our fusible backing, which we put on the back of our background piece. Wash away stabilizer, which we haven't used yet. And medium tearaway stabilizer, which we have not used. The wash away stabilizer, I have hooked 2 pieces, and it does say to hook 2 layers of this. This is what you will stitch on. There's 2 different kinds. There's this clear kind, which is kind of a plasticky feeling thing. Once you sew it, then you can wash it in both of them. You can wash in warm water and you can get it all out. The second kind is kind of a mesh-like, and it will wash out. You just have to, you cut away the edges, and then you can wash out. But it leaves a little bit of fibers in there to kind of hold your stitches. I'm going to choose to use the clear one. This is also used for, but we'll do it later in the project. The freestanding lace is what I'm trying to think of. So that once you stitch on top of all of this, you run it under warm water or soak it in some warm water, and it takes away all of this, but it leaves your stitches, and it makes it stiff, and it's beautiful for freestanding lace. So we've hooked our wash away stabilizer. The other thing we're going to use is medium tearaway stabilizer. We only need a small little piece of it, and it's just a thin little piece of paper. Actually, that's all it is, and it tears. If you don't know the difference, if you've got 2 rolls and you don't know the difference between your cutaway and your tearaway, all you have to do is try to tear it. The cutaway won't tear, the tearaway will tear. I know that sounds simplistic, but that's an easy way for you to tell what you got if you don't have the sheet that tells you what it is. So the first thing we're going to do is we've hooked our 2 layers of stabilizer. And then we're going to load our embroidery file into the machine. And I'm going to take you over here since we've got, and I'm going to change mine out so that you can see what we do. So let's go to our embroidery files. Now we've got our applique, embellishments, the advent embellishments, stitch blocks, fringe blocks, mylar block. And we used our mylar block, remember, on this theme that we did on the first one. This one we're looking for our dimensional pocket blocks. So I'm going to click that. And these are all the ones that require several steps to do it. So there's 2 that we're going to use. The first one is the outside of the pocket, and the second one is what will tack down this to your background fabric. So the first one we need is the mitten pocket, and I'm using a 5x7 hoop. So we set it. It's in the center. It's set like we need. That's all we need to do. All we have to do is click embroidery, and we're ready to go. Okay. Now I'm going to put my hoop in. I'm sorry, don't mean to make you dizzy. Let me sit this down so we get you lined up. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and stitch our first. The first is just the outline of where we want everything to be. So I have my white in, and for now I'm just going to leave the white, and I'll probably change it next because it'll be a visible color. This one won't be. We put our foot down, start. And you'll notice that even though it perforates this, it's not going to make it fall away. All right, the next thing it tells us to do is change our thread. So I'm going to put a red thread in because we're doing the outside of our mitten. Or we're doing our mitten and it's red. So put my red thread on. Try to do this quickly for you. Now we're going to take one of our pieces of red fabric, mitten fabric, and we're going to lay it face up, and we'll do a stitch. We'll just put it down like this because we want some extra so that we can sew it on. So if you lift up, you can make sure that you have, like here on the edge on the thumb, we want to be sure we have enough over here. And then we want to look over here and be sure that we have enough covering all of that and the bottom. And we're going to tack this down. Number 2 says stitch the mitten tack down line and do not trim. We're just going to leave it as it is. And we're going to change our thread to the wavy design. Because this is the mate to the one we did earlier in this section A. And I believe we used pink on the wavy detail on the mitten. So we're going to change that thread. And we're going to go ahead and stitch this just like we would if we had trimmed it, but we're not going to trim it just yet. We'll trim it a little bit later. Okay. We're going to turn this off while it's stitching this detail because this is going to be a pretty long part of our piece. And I will go ahead, after I do the wavy line, I will do the star detail and then the dot detail. And we will come back after I get those things done. And that will be 3, 4, and 5. Got the mitten, the wavy line done, and now I'm going to start the star and then the dots. And I've changed my thread to my white because we want to mirror the other mitten that we have done. So be back in just a minute. We finished stitching our mitten with all the decorations on the front of it. We are at number 5 here, where we have finished the dot detail. Now it's going to tell me to turn the hook to the back. And all we're going to do is just turn it over. We're going to try our best not to push down on this because it will change your tracking on your embroidery and not good things. Now we've turned the hook to the back. We're going to place the other mitten fabric right side up and tape in place. This is the inside of this mitten, this little pocket of the mitten. So we're going to put this right side up, just like this, and we're going to tape it across here. And the tape will stick to the violin, or the water-soluble fabric. We're going to tape it in 2 places. And if you want more, you can go back and you can tape down all these sides if you are concerned about it flipping or turning, because this is going to rub on the bottom side because we're on the back side of our hook. Now we're on the top side, and you can see that these are. The next thing it's going to tell us to do is stitch the mitten tack down line, which would be right here. And when we get through stitching this tack, well, we'll get to it in a minute. There is something I want to remind you of that I had failed to tell you yesterday. When you're embroidering, as much as we're embroidering, remember to check your foot and this little screw that holds your foot on. With all the vibrations that an embroidery machine does, it gets loose every now and then. So be very sure that it's good and snug up on there, and periodically check it because it shakes loose as time goes on. All right, now that I have that on my hook, I'm going to slide my hook back in. And we're going to do our tack down line for our mitten. And I'm going to leave my white thread on. This time it's telling me to leave it on there on number 6. So let's put our foot down and do our tack down line. Now there's some highlighted parts on number 6. We're going to take our hook out of our machine. Right here on number 6, it's telling us to trim the fabric on the top edge of the mitten only, close to the stitching line. And that's shown right here. So on this top, we are only going to go across here, the very top. We are not going to cut through this. We're going to cut the back, but we're going to come from the back and do that. So we're just going to take that one top off right here. We are not going to take it off down here because that helps us sew our pocket onto our background fabric. So right now we want to trim this, and I'm going to try to set my phone down so I can do this for you. I have to get things where I can manipulate them. Stitches, trim as close as you can to the stitching without cutting your stitching. right, we've taken that off. Now we're going to turn it over, and we're going to do the same thing on the back. On the top only. No other place are we going to trim right now. So I'm going to come across here. And we've done that. I think I'm going to, this paper tape tears easily, so I'm just going to stick these two things down, the corners. Now we're going to turn it back over. And we have done what it says on number 6. Get to where you can see this. We've trimmed the top. We've trimmed the back. We have not cut into our interfacing stabilizer. So number 7 tells us to stitch the cuff placement line on the stabilizer. And that's all we're going to do. Not all, but we're going to do one thing at a time as it tells us to do it. Best way to read instructions is to do it one step at a time. So we're going to, let me get set back down here. Stitch our cuff placement line. Take it back out of the hook off of the machine. And number 7 is saying place one cuff fabric right side up, tape in place, and then turn to the back and place one cuff fabric right side up and tape in place. So here's our cuff fabric, and we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're just going to tape this down and get a little more tape. And this tape is easy to tear. So we're just going to tape that down. Then we're going to turn our hook to the back. And we're going to tape our other piece. Oh, it's over here. And I'm going to tear the tape in two, because I don't want tons of tape back here. Now I want it right side up also, because I want my back, my two wrong sides facing each other through the stabilizer. I'm taping both sides because it's on the back, because I don't want anything to turn under and get caught under. The top doesn't matter so much. You can tape it down on the top if you want, but one piece is usually sufficient because you're not rubbing around. Put my hook back on. I'll move you back over. And we stitch our cuff tack down line. I'm sorry I'm moving you so much today, but I really want you to see all these steps. So we are going to put a foot down and do our next one. Now, if you've noticed, we haven't put any batting in this. We'll put our batting on under our background piece when we do our background quilting. This is just the pocket that's on the outside. So let me get the rest set up and I'll be right back. Okay, we are on page 40 now, and starting our part B. This is what our piece looks like when we get finished. I went ahead and tore away all the tearaway stabilizer that we put on the back, and I have a little bit of the wash away up here on the edge. You can either right now take your finger or a Q-tip and wet this part right across here and it will dissolve away, or you can wait until we're done with the pocket and do it then. If you do it now, you're going to have to let it dry before we finish this up. But this is what it's going to look like. You still have some of your extra, and we'll get to that in just a minute. I've gone ahead and hooked our stabilizer again, our lightweight mesh cutaway that we've been using the whole time. We are looking at, on the block by block, the winter 4x6 design, and we're going to put it back up on our screen just like we have been doing on the other blocks. And I'm going to load our embroidery file, and we're looking for the mitten part 2, or mitten 2 part B. It has the number and this satin outline. So I'll show you on this, on the screen. This is what we just finished. This is what we're going to do, and I'm adding that to my design, and there we go. So we are now ready to embroider. I have changed out my green thread bobbin. I put back in my white bobbin. I have need to change out my thread though. I left my green up there. I need to change it back to my white because we're going to do our embroidery stitching. I mean our background stitching. And then we're going to get our background piece of while our batting, because now we're going to finish it like we have done our blocks traditionally, or up until this point. Get the threaded done. I need a piece of batting. Let's go ahead and do our tack down stitch, our placement stitch, excuse me, for our batting. Here, stitch that down. Okay, now I'm going to trim my batting and place my background fabric on here, and go ahead and stitch my background piece just like we've been doing, and then I'll come back when we get to the other parts that we have to do, because we're going to do this carefully. See you in just a minute. Okay, we're back. On part B, on page 40, we are at the point where we are going to stitch the mitten pocket placement line. On part A mitten, place thin straight pins at each end of the satin outlines on the top and bottom where they meet the cuff tack down line. And the note says that the cuff placement is more critical than the mitten placement. So what I have done, hopefully you can see this, my pins are right where the tack down line is, the white stitching is on each end. Let's see if I can get it to where you can see it. And that one you might not can see as well. But it's right where that white tack down line is. That's where it says to do it. So the thing we're going to do is stitch our mitten pocket placement, which I've got everything already here. And then we will place our mitten. Okay, so I'm going to bring everything over here so that we can see what I'm doing. And I know I'm got everybody askew. Ooh, this might be a little difficult to see because they said to do it with thread that won't be visible. Let me find my mitten placement lines, and that's going to be at the very end. You're going to have to follow it to see where we are. Okay. Thought maybe I could see it better on the back, and I can a little bit. A little bit. And we're trying to be very sure that we have this. Exactly on that spot. Okay. There's that one. And it came out. Maybe it would have been wiser to do this in a different color. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to restitch that in a different color. And I think maybe I will do it in red since our mitten is in red, because I can't see where it's supposed to be. And I don't want to just guess, because if our placement is off, it's just not going to work. Go back one and do that again. much better. Okay, let's come back over here. I'm sorry for all the moving today, but I do want you to see exactly what we're doing here. Okay, so where we want to place these, your pins go in right here, and right here, and here, and here. Let's see if I can get this done. Oh yeah, you can really see that much better now. Let's make sure we got in the right place back here. And up here. And there we go. Now, all right, now that we've got it placed, it says to put it on a wool mat or an ironing board so that it's definitely going to stay in the place that you've got it. Checking the back to be sure the pins are coming out at the right points. And they are. So what we're going to do here is to tape this down securely so that it's not going to move on us. But don't tape it where it's going to be, part of it's going to be stitching. And I think the first part that we stitch will be the top of this cuff. So we're going to tape on these parts. And I'm going to tape down here too, so this one doesn't move. And I might even go to the back and do a little bit of taping. No, I don't need to. Never mind. And a little over here. And then once you get it taped down really well, you can take the pins out. It says to use some really fine pins, so get the thinnest pins that you have. I'm going to take one more place, because we do not want this moving at all. All right. Now we put it back on the hook. We stitch the mitten pocket tack down line. Then we trim the mitten and cuff fabric close to the stitch line and trim any mitten tack down stitches from part A. All right, so let's put it on, back on there and do our tack down line. And I think I'm still going to use my red. I think we'll be good with our red. It doesn't matter. And then we'll do the outline. So, after we get all our trimming done. All right. Take it out of the hook. Not out of the hook. I'm going to take the hook off the machine, bring it over here, and do our trimming. Okay, we'll take the tape off. do our trimming. We did really good lining up. I used white thread for the part A and the red thread for the part B, and we got it really close. So I think we're good to go. So I'm just going to trim it all really close, or as close as I can. And I'm trimming through all the layers. The part A layers and the part B ones. I may have to go back and do that just a little bit better, but we'll see. Kind of hard holding all those layers together. Now you may not can see all I'm doing. I'm just holding up all the layers so that I can get as close as I can to it. Here we go. Try a little bit more over here. Okay, let me brush this off in the trash can. A little bit on the messy side on this part. And clean it up just a little bit more. Maybe I'll try other scissors. Okay. Not too good at trimming today, am I? All right, I don't call that good. Now we stitch our satin outline, and we're going to do it with the red. I already have the red on there. And here we go. If the zigzag covers all your edges, then your satin stitch will definitely cover all the edges. Right now we are going to change out to our green to the top of the mitten. Or actually the sides, the top we've already done, and the bottom of the cuff. And when we get through, we're going to have a pocket. Cute, cute pocket. And here we go. Now we're going to change our thread again to our navy to do our day number on it. This mitten is on day 10. That's black. This is the blue. And it's not really navy, it's more of a royal blue. Last thing to embroider is our cut lines, or cut guide, trimming guides. I think that's what they call it. So I'm going to put my white back on. We are done stitching. We have some things to trim up, and I'm going to show you how I have been trimming these since my place, what they call them, trimming guides have wound up on the same line as this outside edge line almost every time. Then I have been using this as a guideline for the size that it needs. Before I cut, I do measure to be very sure that that's what that's the size they need to be. These need to be 4.5 by 6.5. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this for you really quickly. I realized I hadn't shown anybody how I've been trimming. Let me get this out of the hoop. Take my hoop out. And I'll go back later and trim my jump stitches and any little fuzzy things that have come up. And I am using the same ruler to trim with every time. So I measure with this ruler, and it is 6.5 vertically and 4.5 horizontally. So I am just going to use, I'm going to go just to the outside of those stitch lines. I have opted not to use the orange pop rulers. You can use them. You can do anything that you like to do to square up and measure something. But this is how I do it. When I am stitching these, sometimes it gives me the inside line and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm talking about this line right here. I'm using this as my stitch line. So that when I line up my blocks, then that's what I'm looking at lining on. Lining both pieces of my blocks together with. So I get my 1/4 of an inch. So there's our block. There's our little pocket that you can stick a candy cane or some little something in there. I still have to go back and wet this so that will go away. But we are blocked through with our mitten number 2 block. So I will be back in a bit and we will work on our tree block. I believe is what we're doing next. So, see you in just a bit. The next block we're going to do is the tree bucket dimensional block. And it won't be quite as involved as our mitten one was, although our mitten turned out really cute. So the first thing we're going to do is hoop our hoop, and I'm using the 5x7 hoop with the light mesh cutaway stabilizer. We put our fusible backing on the bottom half, and we're only doing the bottom half of the tree bucket. The top half of the tree will be done in a separate block, and we'll sew those two together. So the first thing we do is hoop our stabilizer, and we're going to bring up our embroidery file, the one that has the 789 in it. And we're going to go over here, we're in our dimensional pockets where we have all of our embroidery files for it. And we're going to look, this is the one we want, the 7, 8, and 9. And this will be the second one that we use when we attach it to our background fabric. So let's put that one in on, push set, and embroider. So we are set and ready to go for that. And we are going to stitch our, well, first, we had to cut, the other piece that we have for this is a long piece, a 5 by 8.5 inch piece of red fabric. And they want you to iron it in half, like this, lengthwise. And it says iron a good crease there. And on the back side of it, and we're ironing it with our right sides together. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. And we're going to iron a piece of fusible backing that we did, the same that we did for our background fabric. We're going to put it on only 1/2 of it. I'm putting it up here at the edge where the fold is. I'm not worried about these little pieces back here because that will be taken cut away later. But I want it right up here so that when we lay this in our hoop with our backing fabric down, we're going to open it up, stitch our numbers, and then we will take it out of the hoop, and then after they're stitched, then we'll refold it with our right sides out, and that will be our pocket. And I know that was a quick overview of what we're doing, but that's first thing you do is iron this fabric in half with our right sides inside, and put a piece of fusible stabilizer on the back. Then after we have done that, you have done that, we're going to go over here and we're going to stitch our placement line for our bucket, or for our pocket actually. Again, we're making our pocket ahead of time, and then we'll put it on our background fabric. Okay, now it's going to tell me to take our folded edge, and this is my folded piece with my background fabric to the back. I want it against my stabilizer. I'm putting that fold right on that line. I'm going to open it up, holding this part down. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to tape the bottom half down here. So that we'll hold it in place until we get it, our tack line down. So we stitch the bucket pocket tack line. So let's stitch again, and I've got white on here. I think I'm going to change to red because our pocket is red. Okay. Let's stitch down our line. I'm going to put my white back on so I can stitch my numbers down, or whatever color you want your numbers to be. And these will be for days 7, 8, and 9. On the top of the tree, we will do our freestanding lace ornaments, and we'll have little buttons that we button those to. So that's what they will take out of the pocket, is the freestanding lace ornaments. Okay, so we're ready to do our numbers. And I'm going to start this, and when it's over, I will come back. First, I'm going to thread my machine. I always forget to do that. Now I'm going to start my numbers. Okay, I finished stitching the numbers. You take your hook out. Oops. And we are going to take our take it out of the hook, our block. I'll take my tape off. Don't need it anymore. And we're going to trim the excess stabilizer only. We are not cutting the fabric at all right now. So we're just going to cut off the excess stabilizer. And don't cut your fold. Once we get this cut away, then we're going to iron our piece with wrong sides together so that everything shows up on the right side. And I'm going to go iron this. So this is what it's going to look like when we get through. And I'll be back and we'll get everything set up for the next step. All right, I'm finished with our block. This is what our little pocket looks like. It's nicely folded where the top edge will go down. So we're ready to move on to our next step, which will be pulling up our block by block quilting. Here we're going to do the plant on the 4x6 design on our background fabric here. We are going to align the block embroidery file, or we're going to put our block on like we have. We're just going to bring it up. It's going to go in the center. When we bring in our embroidery file, and it will be the one that has the satin stitch that goes around it, when we pull it up, we are going to move it all the way to it says 1/4 of an inch from the outside line. That's actually the stitching line or the placement line for your batting. So you're just going to not move it vertically. Just scoot it over until it comes to that line on in your file. There'll be this line here. And you'll just scoot this over with the left arrow and move it to where that touches the line. Because we're going to sew this block to the top half when we get through, and we want them to touch. And we're on page 35. So we're going to move over because that's all that has on it. This is what it will look like, and this is what we're trying to place our pocket right along this join line here, so that this will be a separate block that we do. This is the block that we're working on right now. So we're going to stitch our tree bucket placement line, and then we'll see where we place our bucket pocket. Okay, I think we're ready to go to stitch our placement line down. I have my white thread in. This is going to be for our batting. We're going to put our batting down. Okay, I'm going to trim up my batting. I'm going to put my background fabric down, and then I'm going to go ahead and embroider the background fabric just like we've been doing the whole time, and I'll come back when I get through with all that. Okay, I have my background quilting done. Everything's on there. Just like we have been doing. Now I'm going to do the tree bucket placement, pocket placement line. Say that 3 times. So, and I'm using red thread on this one because we have red fabric to put over it. There will be a basting thread that goes along this side that we will take out when we get through, so you won't see that thread. So here we go. What we're going to do is we are going to make sure that these side pieces align with our placement line, and then that goes right along that edge. We're going to check and be sure everything else is right there. And we're going to tape this down. And this is our pocket that's going on top here. I think I'm going to not put it in the seam. I think I'm going to put it right here. And let's put one more piece on the other side. Alrighty, so here we go. Now we're supposed to trim all of our fabric away from our tack down line. Move this over here. Take off my tape. And when this satin stitch is done, we are done with this block. We'll trim it up and put it in our bag, awaiting being sewn together. A cute little pocket to hold our freestanding lace. I'll show you in a second what that looks like. Right, we've trimmed it up. Now we're going to put it back in and do our satin stitch, and we are finished with this block. Okay, we're finished with our embroidery, and we are ready to take it out of the hook and trim it up. Goodness. What we want to do is make sure that we're 1/4 of an inch above here. This is going to be our stitch line, and this is going to be our cut line. So I'm going to measure, and we are 1/4 of an inch up. It needs to be 4.5 wide and 6.5 this way, and it is. So I am going to go ahead and trim this, and we will be ready to move on to the top half of this block. When I'm trimming anything or cutting anything as best as I can, I'll try to put what I want to keep underneath my ruler. That way, if I veer off in the wrong direction like that, I haven't cut my project or the part that I really wanted to save. Because I have done that many times. All right, there's our beginning, our bottom half of our tree block. So let's put some more stabilizer and move on to the next one. Something stuck on my stabilizer there. I know we use a lot of stabilizer, and I try to conserve it as much as I can. But piecing stabilizer together just doesn't give you a good embroidery thing. Just bite the bullet and use a whole piece. I know everybody likes to save fabric and save everything, but it's just not worth it. All right, we've got that hooked. Let's stick it back on my... I need to change out my embroidery screens. The tree top is what we're doing now, and that's this upper part that will go there. This is what it's going to look like when we get finished. This is the part we just did, and we're fixing to do this one. And these are the little ornaments that we'll do as freestanding lace. And the buttons, they'll all be sewn. The buttons will be sewn on when we finish the quilt. And we'll make these a little bit later on. Right now, we want to make the top half of this so that we can sew these together so they look like one whole piece. So we're looking for the 6x6 plant design. Let me delete all of my pieces. I don't want to cancel that because I think that's the 6x6 plant. Yes, it would be the same thing. So what I do want to do is add the embroidery file for the treetop. And I believe it's going to be under stitched. And here it is right here. We'll set that on top. Excuse me. That wasn't 6x6, so I'm going to have to delete all of these. Oops, excuse me, I'm letting it fall. So let's just go back and go through the whole thing. So we were looking for the plant, and we were looking for the 6x6. And my problem there was I had a 4x6 and not a 6x6. Let's see. Right there. So I knew that didn't look right. Now we can add the embroidery file in the stitched block and the tree. Looks much better. Okay, let's click on embroidery. Okay, it's telling me that it will not do this in my 6 1/4 by 6 1/4, my 5x7 frame. I'm going to have to go to my larger frame. So I happen to have another one hooked. You can use your 6x10 frame. I don't happen to have one right now. I only have the 8x12, so we're just going to go ahead and use this. Not sure where my 6x10 is. Let's see if it'll let me do it now, and it will. It's all ready. So we are going to we need to center our, I'm sorry to move you around so much. It says align the block embroidery files centered from left to right this way and aligned on the bottom of the quilting. So what I need to do is to bring mine down. I have an edit here, and even in embroidery mode I can do my edit. So I'm going to move it, and I'm just going to move it down to where the bottom of the tree touches that bottom red line. Ooh. Okay. Maybe I can't do that. So we'll return. Now I'll go to edit. And click on the one I want to move. Nope. If you ever are moving them around, at least on the baby locks, the center dot puts everything right back in center. So there we go. That box that you see there is around the tree, and that's what I want to move. I want it to touch that line down there, and that centers everything where they want it to be. Now I can touch embroidery, and we're where we ought to be. Okay. Now I'm going to stitch my placement line for my batting. Might have to get a bigger piece of batting. Is that one going to work? I believe it is. Okay, I have my batting on. I've got my background fabric on. I've done my background embroidery. Now I'm ready to embroider the tree. And then we will be done with this block. So I'll be right back when I get through. I've changed my thread to the green thread, which is the color of the tree. And I will be back as soon as I get through with this embroidery. Okay, I finished embroidering the tree. We're all done with this block. All we have to do is take it out of the hoop and trim it up, and we are done with this one. Next up will be the filler blocks, and we will I'll go get all that set up, and we'll get back to those. See you in a little bit. All right, here we are at the very end of our section 2. We are doing our filler blocks, and on page 61 we are going to follow our section here. Excuse me. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 fabrics to do our filler blocks with, and these are them. These are the fabrics. 2 of them are not going to fit in your 5x7, so you would definitely have to use your 6x10. These 2 are longer than will fit in your 5x7. So I'm going to show you one of these, and we're going to do the bigger one. Excuse me. The snowflake one, the number 2. And we're going to pull up we have our white thread. Nope, I don't. I have to change that out. So I've hooked my stabilizer. I'm going to do a tack down stitch, put in my batting, and then put my background of my fill on there, and then I'm going to stitch my background design, and then we're going to be done with the block. So follow all those steps, and I'll come back when we get through, and we'll see how we're going to put this block together. See you in just a bit. Okay, I finished doing embroidering the 4x6 snowflake piece, and I did it in my 5x7 hook. Now for the next piece, I am going to do the 2.5, I think it's 2.5 by 4.5, but I'm going to do it in my 4x4 hook, just to save a little on it. I've used some scraps from my stabilizer. The 2 long ones I'm probably going to do in the same hook. Maybe I'll show you how I do that. But but I'm going to get this one done. We're going to put down our batting, tack it down, put down our piece on top, and get that done for you, and then I'll be right back. Well, it won't allow me to do my 4x4 frame because it stitches a little bit bigger. It stitches at 2.5 by 4.5, and a 4x4, the stitch area is a little bit less than 4 inches. So I'm going to have to switch back to my 5x7 frame. So I will do that, and I will get back to you. Okay, I have hooked in my 8x12 hook because like I've told you before, I'm not sure exactly where my 6x10 is. You couldn't double hoop in your 6x10, I don't think it would allow you, but I'm going to do it here, and I'm just going to show you this just so you can know how to put something else in there and get it centered. We can do this because we're just doing background quilting on these squares. If we were adding in applique or embroidery on top, it would be a little more tricky, but we're just bringing these in to do our background quilting in. So as you can see, I've already brought in my 2x8 inch for my striped fabric. It tells me, it's this fabric. It tells me that it is the horizontal trees. So they want the trees to go horizontally on the piece and not vertically. Vertically, it's where the trees would be standing up straight. Now, let's go on to add our second one. And we're doing the, let me see, Christmas. And we're looking for the 2x8, but we want it to be the vertical design. This is a 2x8 horizontal, and this is a 2x8 vertical. So I'm going to choose it. I'm going to set, and you can see it puts it in the center. I don't want to move it this way in the center. I just want to move it over. So when I put this one in, when I moved it over, I could see that it was 1.61 inches over from the center. So that's what I'm going to do. I went to move. I'm going back down here, and I'm going to watch this, and when I get to 1.61, then I know I'm pretty much over, I think. So what I will do is select OK, and I'm going to select embroidery, and I'm going to stitch down the first one because that's the first one I laid down. So let's see where our tack down stitch goes. And this would be for the batting. Oh. Shoot. My whole machine has gotten shifted against the wall, so I'm pulling it out just a little bit. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here and go, I went to where the little needle and plus and minus is, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to stitch that again because I think it messed my registry up. I'm just going to ignore what I did here. Going to be the biggest box on the outside. I'm going to lay my piece of fabric on it to be sure that that's the right size. I think we got all messed up here. Yeah. All right, hang on. I'm going to rehoop this and redo some of this because I think I got it wrong. I'm going to delete it all and bring it back in. Okay, I've rehooped with new stabilizer because I don't know what, it got all messed up. When it hit the wall, it totally messed the register up. Be careful with your embroidery machines that it's far enough away from any obstructions because it will change how everything stitches out. So I brought in my 2x8 on my stockings, and now I'm ready to move it. So I'm going to go up here to edit and to move, and I'm just going to go over let's do 1.65, and we're going to say okay. Now I'm just moving it horizontally. I'm leaving it exactly the same the other way. So we're going to go through and add. We're going to go back to our, and I believe that one is, number 3 is the tree design. I'll know where all these are when I get through with all of this. And we want the 10, the 2x10 horizontal. This is the vertical. This is our horizontal. So we're going to choose that. It's on top of that one, so we're going to go back up here to edit and move. And we're going to go over I think I moved that just a hair up. We're going to bring it back to center and try that again. See, somehow I'm touching something. .65. We're going to say okay. And we're going to say, we'll close our edit screen. We're going to say embroider. And now it's ready to embroider. So it's going to do this one first, which is our little green fabric. So let's see how we do this time. Okay, so let's put our batting down. Okay, I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to trim this. I'm going to go ahead and stitch out this part, and then I'll come back when we move to the next part. All right, I have already stitched down my tack down line for my batting. I put that in and I've trimmed it. I'm getting ready to put down my fabric. And this fabric isn't as big as the fabric for the embroidery blocks, but we're going to make it work. And I'm going to tell you the thing that I do. I use this outside line. This line is my stitch line. This outside line is my cut line after I have measured. But I want this stitch line in it. Not always does it stitch it. Some of them do and some of them don't. So what I do to get this line on the inside is that once I have stitched this and it's ready to tack down, I'm sorry, I'm moving this around, the outside of this, what I want to do is go back, and these are my stitches that will go back, and I want to go back to where it tacks down just like it did for the batting, because I want that same line tacked down. It holds my fabric better and it gives me a stitch line so that I know exactly where to stitch when I'm putting all these together. This is not something that they built in. This is just something that I like to do. So we're going to tack this down or stitch it back down like we did on the batting. It's going to go around it twice. Now we're ready to do the line on the outside, which would be to hold this fabric down, but it's not quite, the fabric isn't quite big enough. And instead of recutting the fabric, I'm just going to use what I got and go with what I got. This also gives me my cut line. And you can see it goes just to the outside of the fabric. If I cut on this line, I still have my stabilizer in my seam. I don't have my batting in my seam, but I have my stabilizer in my seam. And now we're ready to do our background quilting on it. Even if I don't have quite enough fabric for that seam, I still, if I cut out here, I have the stabilizer in my seam, so it's all going to hold together, especially if I stitch right here on this part. So I have enough fabric in my seam, but I want a full 1/4 inch there. So let me stitch. I'm going to stitch down my background quilting, and I think that's the last of what I do. What we have to do on these. I'm going to trim them up, and then I'll come back and show you how we're going to put these together. All right, I've got everything all sewn, all embroidered and sewn, ready to sew together. So this is all the blocks we've made this time, which is a lot. We'll have some things after we finish putting all the quilt together. We'll come back and put on the little buttons that go on here. And there's a string that ties these two together. And a little bit later, we will do the embellishment pieces, like the holly goes here, and there's a little snowman that sticks in the pocket of the mitten. But we're going to sew them together like I showed you in section 1. We are going to lay them out like you're supposed to, like you're going to sew them. I told you I use these stitch lines to match up, and you're just going to sew across there. These are kind of done in blocks, so you would sew these together, and this together. Then you would sew this section to this. Then you're going to sew all these together. Well, you got your plant that you got to sew together, and we want it, when we do it, be sure to remember to take out the basting stitch that we did, and we want this stitch line to match this stitch line so that that tree looks like it's going all the way down in there. So we'll sew this and this together, and then we'll sew this piece to here. So these three together, and then sew them to this unit, and then sew the 2 unit halves together, and we will be done with section 2. I guess I will see you in a week or 2, and we will get to work on section 3. See you until then. See you, and as always, if you have questions, if there's something I'm not explaining clearly enough to you, please let me know, and I will either come back and do a video, or I will answer you as best I can on the Facebook page. So, happy sewing.